الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اجتنبوا كثيرا من الظن إن بعد الظن إثم ولا تجسسوا ولا يغتب بعضكم بعضا أيحب أحدكم أن يأكل لحم أخيه ميتا فكرهتم. In the last few majlis, the topic had been with regards to ghibat. And over 5 or 6, whichever majlis, certain aspects with regards to ghibat and its remedy had been mentioned. In last week's majlis at the end, there was another point that Hazrat Hakim Rahmatullah Alayhi mentioned in the malfuz that was discussed, which had mentioned that Allah Ta'ala will mention it in the following majlis. The malfuz that was mentioned was with regards to the nafs, of how the nafs shaitan deceives a person in thinking that ghibat of a person is a dini zarurat, whereas it may not be a dini zarurat, meaning a dini necessity, but in actual fact just our own nafs wanting to make ghibat of somebody. So this was discussed. At the end, Hazrat Hakim Rahmatullah Alayhi mentions in this malfuz that if what is said of a person is without any tahqiq, without certainty, and it is a lie, then it is buhtan, it is suspicion. And further, Hakim Rahmatullah Alayhi mentions that for a speech or for the matter to be a lie, it is not necessary that a person has not, or that it is ascertained that this is a lie. But here Hakim Rahmatullah Alayhi mentions the fact that it hasn't been ascertained to be a truth as well. This is also kidh, this is also a lie. Means what is a lie? As Hakim Rahmatullah mentions, a lie is not necessary where you have not, or you are not certain whether it is a lie or not. But if you mention something and you are not even certain whether it is truthful or not, that is also a lie. So one is that you mention something and then you find out, you verified it and everything, and it turns out that yes, what you said was a lie. It's verified to be a false. Verified to be false. Then that is kidh, we all know that to be a sin, and that is a lie. But the other is that you mention something, but you haven't even really verified whether what you're saying is truthful or not. One is where you're blatantly lying about something, and you know that isn't the case. For instance, you know that Zayd did not come inside, and you are saying that Zayd came inside, which is a blatant lie that is there. And the other is that somebody may have just said Zayd went inside, you did not see Zayd coming inside. Or maybe you assume that Zayd has gone inside, you have not seen Zayd outside. So you assume that Zayd has gone inside, so you say Zayd has gone inside. But do you know that Zayd has gone inside? You haven't seen Zayd going inside, you do not actually have any verification, certainty that Zayd has gone inside. So the fact that you're mentioning something to be a fact, but you do not even know that it is a fact, that is also a kidh, that is also a lie. And this is exactly how Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam is described as well. That in kafa bil mar'i kadhiban ay yuhaddith bi kulli ma sami'a. That everything that a person relates to others, that can very possibly be a lie as well. Meaning it is possible for a person to be a liar by just mentioning whatever he hears. So you have heard something from somebody, And you're not going to say it is a lie because you've heard this from somebody, you have not made it up. If you made it up, then you can say this is a lie. So you have heard this from somebody, so you're not going to say it is a lie. But Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned just passing every news on that you've heard from somebody else can also make a person a liar. And that is by spreading and passing on rumors, false news. Meaning that in that entire chain, the person who is part of that chain of something that is false, which is not true, will also be from those who are liars. Although this person did not conjure or invent the lie, and did not deliberately put in a lie or so, but the fact that it was something that was not verified as well will make a person into a liar. And this is also something that many of us are, generally many of us are involved in as well. That there will be so much news and so much information and matters that people will say to us, mention to us, and without us actually knowing for true or not, for sure or not, we then pass that on to others, or we will mention that to others, or we take that to be facts. And if it turns out that it isn't factual, then this will make a person a liar as well. And this will even be that person who says that I do not lie. I do not lie because yes, this person may not be lying in a sense that they do not deliberately make something up and lie. But in it, and that's one of the harms of ghibat is, wherein there too it sets off a chain of multiple sins. Because when a person finds out that look, somebody made ghibat of me, and if that person then questions that individual, and if he does not want to admit to it, then what he'll do is he'll mention falseness, he'll start lying now simply to try and cover himself. To try and cover his skin, he'll start lying. And that one lie will lead to another lie, to another lie. And this is what lying does in actual fact. It doesn't just stop, it breeds more. It continues to enable, in order to maintain that lie, a person needs to lie multiple times, a lot of times to maintain that one lie that a person makes up. And sometimes it may even last a lifetime in an individual. Somebody made something up at some stage in their life that they achieved this or they achieved that. And maybe there might be that person who is not even qualified in a certain skill or so, but just managed to Photoshop a certificate. And now they're getting job after job due to that. And that remains a continuous lie. And whoever now asks that person, were you qualified or have you qualified as whatever, you're going to say, yes, isn't it now? Everybody says yes. Or people will say, look, this is Dr. Saab, this is engineer, this is Fula, this is Fula, this is Fula, with the title that you have. So this person, although later on may even understand that, look, I shouldn't be lying, and the person makes tawbah with regard to the lies, whatever lying they've done in the past, and now they abstain from lying. But this one lie is something that they're going to have to maintain. Or even if they feel that, look, it's something that I'm no longer lying to anybody, but it is there, isn't it? It is there in your record, and that's going to keep on coming up. But people are going to say, this is an engineer. You're not going to say, no, that's fake, I just faked it. I just faked it, it's not true also. Go to your work employment and say, look, I faked it, I'm not a doctor at all, but I've been acting as a surgeon and I've been cutting people open for many years. So you'll get such people who have been doing such things as well for many years. So a lie breeds on, it continues, and sometimes you can't get away from the lie as well. And here this one lie is one which is very detrimental. As I mentioned last week or so with the Majlis or with regards to bid'ah, that how a person can still make tawbah. When it comes to this type of a lie, there again, tawbah becomes restricted. Person blatantly lies, he'll make tawbah, and he'll abstain from that in future. But if you're going to relay a matter to others, information to others, which you do not regard to be a lie, because you think that somebody said it to you, and they've mentioned it to you, so it is truthful, so it is a fact, and you mention that to others, you're not going to make tawbah. And maybe that goes to that person, the news goes on, and you've not heard of that anymore, and it just continues. So you don't even realize that there is a need for me to verify that. You never even verify that. But you become a chain, part of that chain of falsehood as long as it remains. And you're not even aware. You don't even realize that, look, you are part of the chain of falsehood. Just because you wanted to You didn't control the tongue, and you did not verify whatever news you passed on. In our times, due to social media, this is something that's very easy, and it is something that many are involved in. And that is what just passing news on with regard to any matter for that reason. Sometimes you get a message with regards so and so is ill, so and so is ill. And without actually finding out that, look, this the person who sent me the message, who's told them, is this person who would really know of it or not? Is this the closest person that you can understand, okay, this would be a reliable source, somebody who is close to that individual is the one who has mentioned it? No verification here whatsoever. You just simply pass that on to others, hoping that, look, this person is requesting dua for this individual. If I send this on to others, maybe I'll be part of that chain of neki and sawab, where others will make dua for this individual. And then later on, what happens is you find out by people saying, no, that person is fine, the health says anything. The health says there's nothing wrong with them, it is just a false rumor. And now what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to message back all your contacts that you send a message to, and now you're going to have to now retract that. Retract that and say, look, it was a mistake. And this is something that is common. And when it comes to the demise of somebody, a lot of people have died before their time. And that's on WhatsApp. On WhatsApp, many people have had a WhatsApp death. A lot of people have had a WhatsApp death before their real death. That is how. Who knows where? So and so had an accident, so and so became ill, so and so had a heart attack, so and so is in hospital, so and so passed away. And then you know, so and so is fine, so and so is healthy, so and so is here and there in the world, gone for Umrah, they're flying here, they're flying there. They're fine, they're not down under yet, they're in the skies, they're flying overseas, they've got overseas tour or something. And we become part of that chain, which is something that is very detrimental. I've mentioned this a few times before as well. That these are those type of things that we need to abstain from, and we need to save ourselves from. So one is when it comes to this type of information, news, even family matters. If it's not a case of just illness and demise, there are other family matters as well. That so and so has divorced his wife, so and so has divorced his wife, so and so has this issue, so and so has left the home, and this has happened, and so are not talking with one another. You've just heard that from somebody. You do not even know whether it is haqiqat or not, is it true or not. And then you meet somebody, a family member, and you say, have you heard? No, what have you heard? Well, I've heard this, and you tell them that this is what I've heard. And this what we say of, this is what I have heard, is exactly what Nabi Karim Sallallahu mentions, that whoever kafabil mari kadhiban ayuhaddisa bi kulli ma sami'a. Everything that I have heard, you pass that on to somebody else. And if what you have heard is not the truth, then you are part of that chain of falsehood. That's why it is very, very important. And these messages of people's demise, illness, or whatever hard incidents and that would not get by, it wouldn't become viral if the person, the initial person who received it, or the initial group of people who received it, had verified the matters. And remember, we are those who we want it to become viral. Our message is the one that becomes viral. And then later on we can tell our mates when they say, oh, we'll see if this message, you know who was the first one? I'm sure there's a specific, is there a name, a term for the first one? Social media is nahi hai. So there will be those who will say that I am the OP, I am the one who opened the opening post. So I am the one who actually made the first message. I am the one who passed it on, and you boast about it. Which means by you are the serial liar. And if it turned out to be falsehood, it's going to come all the way back to you, and you're going to be the main culprit for it. You're going to be the source of spreading the false rumor. This is how detrimental it is, and we do not even regard these matters to be important. That, look, should I be verifying these things or not? Should I be paying attention to this type of information or not? And further, where this matter is even more detrimental is when it comes to matters of deen, and when it comes to the hadith of Nabi Karim sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. And this is also an illness that the ummah faces. And what is that illness? That illness where we say that, look, think before you speak. Here is a case of think before you send. Think before you send. Think before you use your thumb. Think before you start typing, before you start forwarding your messages and that. Think beforehand. Because here too, by us not thinking, what happens is that so many false, fabricated hadith go around, wherein people have just made things up, and we become part of that chain of lies as well. And this chain of lie is worse than the other in normal. Why? Because here there has been specific warning with regards to those who spread, which Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam, some ascribe falsehood towards Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala alayhi sallam. The hadith Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam specifically mentions, Man kadhaba alayya muta'ammadan, in one riwayat, without muta'ammadan falyatabawa maq'adahu fi an-nar. Another riwayat from Ali radiallahu ta'ala, that whoever does so, falyalij an-nar, he'll be thrown in the fire of Jahannam. That whoever ascribes a lie towards Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam, Nabi sallallahu says what? He should prepare his abode in the fire of Jahannam. One riwayat, the word Man ta'ammada comes as well in Anas radiallahu ta'ala. And look at the Sahaba Kiram radiallahu ta'ala. On one occasion, Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Zubair radiallahu ta'ala, the son of Sayyidina Zubair radiallahu ta'ala, said to his father, that why is it that I do not hear you mentioning hadith just the way Fula and Fula does? Most likely it was in Abu Hurairah and others. The other Sahaba, there are those who mention so many hadiths of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Why is it that from you we do not hear any hadiths? How come you do not mention so many hadiths of Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam? To which Sayyidina Zubair radiallahu ta'ala mentions that with regards to my condition, فَمَعَنَا فَلَمْ أُفَارِقْهُ, my condition was such that I would very rarely be away from Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam. Sayyidina Zubair ibn Awam radiallahu ta'ala was the cousin of Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam from Rashtra Mubashara, and he very close, so he was a family member of Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam. And he was a very close companion of Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam. And he was with Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam in all the battles as well. So he says that when it comes to, it's not a case of that I would hardly be with Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, so how could I narrate from Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam when I would not even be in the company of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? That wasn't the case. I would be there often with Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam, but it is because I've heard Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam. If it wasn't for this, then I wouldn't mention hadith, but because I've heard Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mention that man kadhaba alayya falyatabawwa maq'adahu fi an-nar, that whoever ascribes a lie towards me should prepare his abode in the fire of Jahannam. So if it wasn't for that, I would mention the hadith of Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam. And here Sayyidina Zubair radiallahu ta'ala feared what? He didn't fear mentioning the hadith. What he feared is that maybe I mentioned the hadith and maybe my words may be incorrect, or maybe I might have misunderstood something, or maybe I may alter some of the words that Nabi Kareem uttered. So it wasn't a case of something that's made up and passing that on from Nabi Kareem that he feared. He just feared that maybe I may not narrate it exactly as how Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned it. And you can be sure that Sayyidina Zubair radiallahu ta'ala remembered these things. But this was their fear, their consciousness that look, we don't want to end up in the fire of Jahannam. There are those other Sahaba who remember better and who are jari, who have that courage, and they are willing to mention these hadiths of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. That's why on occasion Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala asked Huzaifa bin Yaman, he asked generally that who has heard what from Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala with regards to fitan? When the days or time of fitan will come. Huzaifa bin Yaman radiallahu ta'ala mentioned that I have heard from Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and I can narrate it exactly as how Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned. And Umar radiallahu ta'ala said to him, it seems that you are jari upon it, meaning that you are very courageous upon it. So willing to very easily just mention the hadith of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and also say, yes, I haven't mentioned it. And then he mentioned the hadith. So there are those Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala who remembered well, and they would mention the hadith of Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam. And there are those Sahaba kiram radiallahu ta'ala who remember the hadith of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, but it's because they fear not falling into this wa'id, this warning of Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam, they abstain from mentioning hadith. Sayyidina Anas bin Malik radiallahu ta'ala who narrated 2248 hadith. So that is quite, he's a mukassirin from those who have narrated over 1,000 hadith. So Alhamdulillah, he's mentioned quite many. But he still mentions that if it wasn't for this hadith, I would not mention the hadith of Nabi Karim excessively. I wouldn't mention, I would not mention excessively the hadith of Nabi Karim sallallahu ta'ala sallam. Had it not been that I heard Nabi Karim sallallahu mention this, and then he narrates the same hadith as well. In his riwayat, the words that man ta'ammada, since Zubair bin Awam there, the word muta'ammidan isn't there. So in Sayyidina Anas radiallahu ta'ala, in his riwayat, it is man ta'ammada, who deliberately ascribes faults towards Nabi Karim sallallahu ta'ala sallam, should prepare his abode in the fire of Jahannam. But the reason why Sayyidina Anas had mentioned so many hadiths as it is because Allah Ta'ala had granted him a long lifespan. And this was through the dua of Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Nabi Karim sallallahu made dua for Sayyidina Anas radiallahu ta'ala. See dua Nabi Karim made for him. What is that Allah Ta'ala grants him barakat in his life. Allah Ta'ala grants him barakat in his children. And Allah Ta'ala grants him barakat in his wealth. And the result of that was that Allah Ta'ala gives so much barakat to Sayyidina Anas bin Malik radiallahu ta'ala, that where all other date palms would bear fruit once a year, his yard and his vines would bear fruit twice a year. That is the barakat Allah Ta'ala had given Sayyidina Anas bin Malik through the dua of Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam. After all, Sayyidina Anas bin Malik was what? He was a khadim khas, one of the khuddam of Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala, Sayyidina Anas radiallahu ta'ala. They are from the khuddam, the servants of Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam, those who did the khidmat of Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And those who do khidmat of somebody, whether they do the khidmat of their parents, their ustad, their shaykh, they are those who get the most dua. They are the ones who get the most dua as well, and they are the ones who get the special duas as well. And said Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala as well, he became Ra'isul Hibrul Ummah, Ra'isul Mufassirin through the dua of Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allahumma alimul kitab, Allahumma faqihul kitab, Allahumma alimul hikmah. The various duas of Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam had made for Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala because of his serving of Nabi Karim sallallahu ta'ala alaihi wasallam. So Sayyidina Anas bin Malik radiallahu ta'ala was so fortunate. As a child, when he was young, his mother Sulaim came and handed him over to Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is my child, he'll make khidmat of yours, accept him for your khidmat. So Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam made this dua. And then Nabi Karim sallallahu made dua that Allah Ta'ala grant him barakat in his children. He has so many children, as Anas sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned that over 100 I have buried with my own hands. Over 100 he had buried with his own hands. And when they would come for tawaf as well, the entire mataf would be filled with the Ali Anas, with the family of Sayyidina Anas radiallahu ta'ala. That is how much Allah Ta'ala give it. And with regards to lifespan, 120 is guaranteed. Some even mention 200 years. But he lived for over 100 years, 120 years at least. So because his lifespan was so long, and Sayyidina Anas radiallahu ta'ala had many students as well. So for that reason, the number of his hadiths had also increased. Because there were those Sahaba Kiram radiallahu ta'ala who later on, they just carried on with their normal lives. And there were those Sahaba Kiram radiallahu ta'ala who maintained the passing on of the hadith, teaching the hadith, who had students. So those who are going to have students, they're going to then mention, they're going to be narrating hadiths to them. So because of that, and people would ask, Sayyidina Anas radiallahu ta'ala mentioned to us with regards to what Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned with regards to this matter or that matter, or people would come to Sayyidina Anas radiallahu ta'ala mention and ask questions to him. So because of that, the amount of hadith itself had increased. But Sayyidina Anas radiallahu ta'ala himself mentioned that had it not been for this hadith of Nabi Karim sallallahu ta'ala sallam, then I would not have mentioned hadith excessively even. These are the Sahaba Kiram radiallahu ta'ala. So Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala, there was nobody who was more close to Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wa sallam than Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala. So Aisha radiallahu ta'ala mentions that لَمْ أَعْقِلُ أَبَوَيَّ وَهُمْ فِي الدِّينِ. She mentions that since the time that I became conscious, meaning I became baligh and I became aware of understanding, I have known my parents have always been on deen. And hardly would there be a day wherein Nabi Karim sallallahu ta'ala sallam, either in the morning or the evening, or at least once during the day, or even both in the morning or evening, that Nabi Karim sallallahu ta'ala wasallam did not come to my house, did not come to our house. So Nabi Karim sallallahu ta'ala wasallam and Abu Bakr Siddiq's bond goes beyond from the time of Makkah to Mukarramah. So did Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala not pay attention to what Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam would say? So he had heard, almost you can say, he had heard the most from Nabi Karim sallallahu ta'ala wasallam. But he is from those who mentioned the least from Nabi Karim sallallahu ta'ala wasallam. Very few. It's a handful of hadiths are narrated from say Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala. And the reason was as well, for this specific reason. If somebody would ask, they would not conceal, because there was that fear as well of concealing ilm, so they wouldn't do that as well. But because they had that fear that they did not want to ascribe to Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam something that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam has not said, or narrate from Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam something that is incorrect. And even amongst the muhaddithin, as in last week's majlis had mentioned with regards there as well, where the muhaddithin, when it comes to that ghaibat which is allowed, of how the muhaddithin have been so specific with regard to who they've taken the hadith from in the line of jarh and ta'dil with regards to getting the authentication of the various, or the finding out the character of a muhaddith in order to categorize that hadith in the category it is for it to be acceptable or not. So this is how conscious they were with regards to hadith and passing it on the basis of the narrator. So never mind conjuring something themselves, just that which had been passed on to them. That is the chain authentic or not? Are the narrators authentic or not? Are they reliable or not? So much tahqiq, research would go in that before they would then accept that hadith, and before they would then pass on that hadith to their students or to others. This is the extreme that they would go to. And then there is a debate with regards to narrating a meaning, which we will say to the nearest meaning. We will say to the nearest meaning. So one is the actual words of Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that the other is where the rawi, the narrator, may change the words to the nearest meaning, you will say, which is something that the muhaddithin have accepted. The muhaddithin have accepted. But this to the nearest meaning, we're talking about the hadith itself. We're not talking about your bayanats wherein they say to the nearest meaning, because a lot of times they're very far off the nearest meaning. So we're not talking about that ignorant line. We're talking about the line of hadith itself, riwayat bil ma'na, which is different. That's what that is very, very important. Any hadith for that matter. Any hadith for that matter. Very, very important. That's why in the Darul Ulooms and in the field of hadith, the student will not narrate hadith until there is no ijazah. You have other fields of life wherein people will mention hadith anyhow whenever they want to, without any consciousness of whether they know for sure that is a hadith or not. Whether they've had, no, because you've said in one bayan, and you've just heard somebody saying that it is mentioned to the nearest meaning, for example, or somebody just passed something on to you, you've just read something, for instance, but you haven't even verified it, you don't even know. Is it a case of a muhaddis or a ustad or alim something has said to you that look, this is the hadith, or you have learned that hadith in the kitab or so, or a book of hadith or so, and you just pass that on again? That is again going against this what Nabi Karim mentioned, because you do not know whether it is a hadith or not. So the muhaddithin were very specific with regard to this matter, very conscious with regard to this matter. So the Sahaba Kiram radiallahu ta'ala knew the hadith, but they feared that they did not want to narrate the hadith incorrectly. So out of fear of mentioning something which was definite, that we may mention it incorrectly, they feared not mentioning it. And we are how? That we irrelevant. We have no knowledge at all whether it is correct or not correct. No knowledge at all whether it does exist, it doesn't exist, whether it is correct or not correct at all. But we just find anything that we receive, we just pass it on, we send it on, we send it on. And we send on all sorts of things. Just because something sounds good to us, we pass it on. And there will be those things which are passed about, especially those things which are ascribed to us in Ali radiallahu ta'ala. Most of these are from the Rawafis. Not even from Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala, it's from the Shia, the Rafis. And it didn't there from the Malfuz and the sayings of what Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala. Since when did Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala have such so many sayings that we don't even find in any books or so, but we find them on WhatsApp. We don't find them in any books, but we find them going about in on WhatsApp. And ascribed to Sunnah Adi, Sunnah Adi. The words may be good even, but the fact that it's ascribed to Sunnah Adi is not. That is incorrect. And in it then also there is always that dangerous message that is within it. That is, and even if the message is correct, but just the fact that it's not Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu, so it's a lie already. And the fact that we forward that on, we become part of that chain of lies. And this is now what, as I mentioned, an example of what is ascribed towards Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu. But then there are so many messages that go about, which are ascribed towards Nabi Karim sallallahu ta'ala sallam, which is regarded to be a hadith. That it is in the hadith of Nabi Karim sallallahu the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned in Fula Fula and so many the things that are there. And when you read the hadith, those who have a little bit of awareness of the hadith, just by reading it, never mind getting down to what the source is, just by reading the words of it, you know that this is something that is totally made up. Totally made up. And especially when it comes to virtues, such type of virtues that you've never even heard of. Those type of things. Because there is a pattern of virtues that Allah Ta'ala has mentioned in the Quran and virtues in the Hadith as well. When you become aware of somebody, you know the style of speech and the material, the type of speech of theirs as well. You know what type of words that they utilize. The Muhaddiseen, Allah Ta'ala has given them that malak as well, because day and night they're dealing with what? The words of Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they are aware of this. So even without even knowing where it's come from, just by looking at the words, they are able to even understand that whether this is a marfu riwayat or not. Whether it is something directly narrated by Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam or not. These type of messages, a lot of them are of that nature, which you can just by reading it will understand as well. That look, this looks something, as you will say, something that is not a hadith. And these are those type of things that go round about. There are many such type of rewards or fazilas and virtues that are mentioned in books which are mawzu, totally fabricated. Okay. There are even those which you will find a lot in books or things narrated by certain Sufis. And then when you talk about Sufis, we have the two types of Sufis. One is we have those that the Tasawwuf and Sufism that we are talking about, which we are. That which is from Quran and Sunnah. Nothing else aside from that is accepted in this suluk and tasawwuf. And alhamdulillah, the silsila of Hazrat Hakim Umar Thani rahmatullah alayhi is one which is mudallal. One that is alhamdulillah, that you can, there is full proof to it. There is nothing hocus pocus and nothing strange and nothing that is out of the world in that. And this is the khubi of it, alhamdulillah. Whereas there is other chains as well, and there is other khanqahs as well, or forms of suluk and tasawwuf, which are on haqq as well. But then you will find certain things which are, as you say, a bit beyond reality as well. A bit beyond reality, which any person was to hear this, you start mentioning these things, you just wonder what on earth is going on here. And alhamdulillah, in the tasawwuf and suluk of Hakim Umar rahmatullah alayhi, and also in our Hazrat rahmatullah alayhi, you wouldn't get confused. It would be very easy and simple. Explain very easily and simple our level which other people understand, and also that which nobody can put fingers at where did you get this from? Where is this proven from? You'll be able to prove it, and there would be evidence for it. And that is the suluk and tasawwuf that a person wants to be on. And then you have those who are Jahil Sufis. And when you come to Jahil Sufis, or whatever Aqidah may be, then there you find where there is a lot of fabricated, things that are fabricated. Where is fazail, where is rewards and ajr and that are just made up. These are made up. You find this a lot. That's why if an alim or a sheikh is a Sufi and an alim, that is better than one who is just a Sufi and not an alim. Because in that person's books and in that person's bayans as well, you get all these type of things. And that's just few people now as well. So in their bayans and in the books as well, you find all these type of narrations or fazail and that which is mentioned, which again there is no proof to it at all. You do not find it in the hadith. So a lot of times it is these type of narrations which come to people, and then there is some person here and there, that initial person who changes it and ascribes it to Nabi Karim sallallahu ta'ala alaihi wasallam. That this is what Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, but it's not Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is so and so Sufi, somebody else has called, somebody else has mentioned this. And there are those who sometimes there is a malfuz. Malfuz means a statement or a word of wisdom that some pious righteous person have said, and you know you've read that somewhere, and there will be those who even pass that on as a hadith. They even pass that on as a hadith as well. Which just shows that they're part of this chain of those who just pass on anything that comes their way. And so many things are passed on in such a manner. So many things are passed on in such a manner. It is very important that we abstain from this. And especially the senders are so corrupt. They're so corrupt. Allah just knows best who these people are, who will mention a narration, total nonsense narration, fabricated narration. And then at the end of it, they will just mention a hadith of Bukhari with regards to Balighu anni walau aya, of propagation and sending hadith or so, or any of ilm or so. So they'll mention that hadith and say this is in Sahih Bukhari, book so and so, fula fula fula, chapter so and so, and volume so and so, whatever. And they put that together. So the person who reads that will say that this hadith is the hadith of Bukhari. Whereas the whole hadith is fabricated. Only maybe just one last portion of it is from the hadith, and that is which they have the reference for. You'll see that reference and you think that the whole hadith is in Bukhari. This is how sly and how they con people and how they fool and deceive people. That a person thinks that look, this is the hadith of Bukhari, then that is a Salkur Bada Kitabillah, then why not send it on for choice? What more verification than the fact that it says Bukhari and book and Jild and that as well. And they'll pass that on. Whereas the whole hadith is not in Bukhari. It is just that one section. And that is those who deceive in such a manner will say, look, that hadith is in Bukhari, I didn't say anything else about the rest of the hadith. But at the same time, there are even those who send such messages of a hadith which is not even Bukhari, but just write this Sahih Bukhari. I've received such those people who do send to ask that is this authentic or not, should we forward this or not. So, wherein that hadith does not even exist, or it doesn't even exist in Sahih Bukhari, and they'll be written there that this hadith is Sahih Bukhari. That is how much courage people have all of a sudden to even ascribe it towards Bukhari. This is the hadith of Sahih Bukhari. Whereas it's not even in Sahih Bukhari. Open it, look for it, search in Sahih Bukhari, you will not even find it in Sahih Bukhari. Now what happens is that we receive these messages. Thursday night comes, bombardment of messages. Friday will come, bombardment of messages. Of all sorts of fazilats and virtues and of durood and this durood. Where on durood as well are mentioned. And you have a lot of people who mention and send durood-e-taj, durood-e-fula, durood-e-fula, wazifa-e-fula buzruk, fula buzruk, fula buzruk, and that. But ajib, is there anything wrong in the durood of Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Is there anything deficient left in the du'as that Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam has taught us? The wazifas Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam has taught us, is there any deficiency? Are those incomplete? That we bypass those and we want to send some other buzruk's wazifa, some other person's durood and this person's this and that. And especially the fact that one buzruk in his own condition, he mentioned some words in the love of Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And through the barakat of that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helped that buzruk, that pious person in certain matter. Maybe Allah ta'ala gave shifa to that person through the words and the manner in which they supplicated to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And because that helped that person, what then becomes is that supplication or that durood, that wazifa of that person, righteous person, that now gets a new name, and that now becomes wazifa, munajat, dua, durood, fula fula. And then what happens is, it is sent in a nice glossy message as well, as Fula Buzruk was in this condition, that condition, Fula condition, and he read this Fula dua, or he read mentioned these words, or he mentioned this durood, and through the barakat of that, Allah Ta'ala relieved him, whatever, gave whatever, Fula. So pass this on. Pass this on, and make this a ma'mul, read it as well, and make this your practice, and pass it on to others. And it becomes viral, everybody passes it on. Again here, this is one condition of this specific individual. If this wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala benefited from those words, it is not necessary everybody else is going to benefit from those words. If that Buzruk did some specific amal, they may benefit from that. It's not necessary others would do. One is, remember, their ruhaniyat was such that simple words would do the work for them. Simple words would do the work for them. One person came to Hazrat Maulana Rashid Ahmad Gangohi Rahmatullah Alayhi and said, Tawiz chahiye for whatever. Hazrat Maulana Rashid Ahmad Gangohi Rahmatullah Alayhi said, I don't know, I don't do Tawiz. But he insisted on Tawiz. So Hazrat Maulana Rashid Ahmad Gangohi Rahmatullah Alayhi said, he made dua to Allah Ta'ala. He's asking me for Tawiz, I do not know how to Tawiz. Oh Allah, whatever his need is, you fulfill that, and he just wrote the name of Allah, folded that in a Tawiz and gave it to that person. He just wrote the word of Allah. I made dua to Allah Ta'ala. He's asking Tawiz, I do not know how to write Tawiz. Allah, help him and assist him in his need, and gave him a placebo. Otherwise, he's not going to go from there until you don't give that the bigger the one, the more larger it is, the more mashallah, the big buzruk, from big buzruk we got big Tawiz. And if you don't do Tawiz, he always is nothing at all. Not long ago somebody phoned me and said, Mufti Farah, हाँ जी, तो किसी ने कहा कि आपसे बात करने का ठीक क्या मसला है, ठीक है भाई क्या मसला है, तो मैंने फुला ख्वाब देखा, तो मैंने कहा भाई ख्वाब देखना तो किसी और के पास था, तो आप मुफ्ती साहब है ना, तो मैंने कहा लेकिन मुफ्ती साहब का काम ये नहीं है कि वो ख्वाब बताए, I gave him some else, इसे मुफ्ती, मैंने कहा मुफ्ती का काम ख्वाब दिखाने का नहीं, that's not the job of a mufti. Mufti is not a dream catcher. Mufti's job is you'll phone a mufti for a fatwa. Masla जानना ऐसे कोई मसला जानना आपको किसी साथ और पैसे का मसला है वो आप किसी का आपसे पूछ लो वगैरह वगैरह. ऐसे मसला पूछना हो फतवा चाहिए तो हमारे पास आए. That is what we sat here for. We're not here for interpreting dreams. And then that person starting his head, what's about being mufti if you can't interpret dreams, or you're not going to interpret dreams? So there too they think as well, if you don't write tawiz, then if you write tawiz, a big Maulana because he writes tawiz. And if you don't write tawiz, then he's not a Maulana at all. So this is how people think the Maulana becomes, he spends all these 6, 7, 8 years in Darul Uloom for what? Just to write tawiz. So, after what is he? Just write all sort of drawings of monsters and all sort of things on it, and that becomes your tawiz. Chalo khair. Kya baat hai? Hamara Rashid Ahmad Gangohi Rahmatullah Alayhi. So he just said, made dua to Allah Ta'ala, but look, his nisbat with Allah Ta'ala was such, that he just made this dua to Allah Ta'ala, he just wrote a blank, gave him a blank tawiz, and that blank tawiz worked for him. That blank tawiz worked for him. So this Buzruk, when he's going to make dua to Allah Ta'ala, his condition with Allah Ta'ala, connect with Allah Ta'ala, he said it's going to help him. Our ta'alluq with Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is not of that nature. So what we depend on, what we need is the kalam, the words of Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, that we can benefit from what? From the anwarat and the barakat of the words of Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. That is what we are in need of. That is what we are in need of. Hence, where you have the option of the durood prescribed by Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and then you have a durood which a pious person may have mentioned on certain occasion, why give preference to that durood over the durood of Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? The dua for a specific occasion, the Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, duas for shifa, the Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam himself has prescribed to us. Why give preference to another dua a righteous and pious person even had made which helped them? And we give preference to that over that of Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam does not make sense at all. It does not make any sense at all. As I mentioned, it's not undermining that wali of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Theirs was not the words, it was a connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that helped assisted in those words. But when we know and when we have in front of us so many duroods, and alhamdulillah, there is a compilation of duroods, so many duroods which are from the hadith of Nabi Karim sallallahu ta'ala sallam, and who would know better? And not that these other duroods, there will be those duroods which are totally against our aqidah as well. And there are people who read such wazifas and duroods and that which are incorrect as well. So there are those who go down that route. And there are those who do read such duroods of certain Wali of Allah Buzruks also, which will be correct in his words. But that same amount of time and effort in reading those, you could have read what? The actual durood which is from the hadith of Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The du'as of Nabi Karim. Yes, if a person wants to do what? There's du'as of shifa mentioned by Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You read those du'as, and then along with that also try these alternate remedies, as you can say, by all means. But now to give preference to the alternate remedies over that which Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam has given, this doesn't make sense at all. Combine them. If you want to for more barakat or so, read this and read that as well. That is fine. But to give preference to that over that which Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as if we say that what Nabi sallallahu has taught us is incomplete or not as effective as that of what some Buzurg or Allah wala had done. And remember, as I mentioned to you, there are certain remedies which a wali of Allah Ta'ala may have done for themselves, and because they did that for themselves, it doesn't mean that, look, everybody needs to do that. Like you have the people who after Salat as well start putting their hands on their heads and reading things and blowing in the eyes and here and there and everywhere else. But what Allah wala Buzurg might have done this dua. And that helped them. It doesn't mean that we all need to do. Why? Because Nabi Karim did not do that. And Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam has taught us so many du'as. So many du'as Nabi Karim has taught us. So many azkar are already there to be read after salah. So many to be read after salah. When these are found, then give preference to that. Give preference to that. Ye forwarding of messages. Forwarding of messages, as mentioned to you, get these type of things as well, of certain durood that is ascribed, of wazifa, fula buzduk, wazifa, fula buzduk, fula wazifa, fula with of so and so person, and etc. And that. So by, you have that which is there from Masnoon du'as. Give preference to that which is Masnoon du'as. And these type of things should not be passed on to others as well. The people start labeling you as well. Don't pass it on to others. There's no need to pass it on to others as well. And especially when it is not verified. Certain things that are not verified, things are not authentic, and we are not under any obligation at all. No matter how much the sender will warn you in their message as well, that look, if you do not send this message, then you'll die, and your whole family will die, and all your wealth and everything, all your wealth will be destroyed, and this will happen, and you'll be afflicted with this illness and that illness. But whatever they say, let them say whatever they want. Nothing will happen. Nothing at all. In the past, there was that khat, Sheikh Ahmad ka khat. Some Sheikh Ahmad wrote a letter from the Haram, from Masjid Nabawi. And that used to go around, and people should send that. There's a post. People should actually post it and spend money on that as well. And they should be written as well that if you don't pass this on to others, then this and that will happen to you. So people will be so scared of it, so scared that they would pass that on to others because of the wa'id, the warning that would be there for not passing it on. People just pass it on for that sake. That's come to an end now. But now is this system now, where they warn you as well that, look, if you don't pass it on, you'll be depriving yourself of reward and this and that. As I mentioned to you, and all those who are listening as well, don't worry, nothing will happen to you at all. Nothing will happen to you. And even if that hadith is authentic as well, and you did not pass it on to others, do not worry about that at all. Reason being is, one is that you pass it on to others with the intention of gaining reward. Fine, you pass it on to others, others make amal, you'll get the reward for it. They pass it on to others. So we have that desire that, look, we want the reward for it. Then make sure you verify it. If it is verified, then pass it on, you'll get the reward for it. If it is not verified, and it is something which is unauthentic, and you pass that on, then instead of gaining, you're going to be losing. You're going to be part of that chain of those who are of those who need to prepare their abode in the fire of Jahannam. Why? Because they've ascribed to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam that which Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam has not mentioned. You're part of that chain of passing it on, and this would happen. Anything nice and good, any hadith, okay, pass it on, pass it on. We just going on and we just pass it on, pass it on. So we are not under any obligation to pass it on. Rather think of what is more beneficial for me. What is more beneficial for me? I rather keep it where it is and save myself from being part of this chain than being in a chain of destruction. And who knows? Maybe if you have that intention, Allah Ta'ala will give you the reward of others making amal upon it. Who knows? Allah Ta'ala wants to, why not? Because you feared, you did not want to pass it on. And another haqiqat reality is many who receive them and many who pass them on don't even read them. The many who don't even read the hadith or whatever the message may be. The virtue, and that they said, okay, virtue of Miraj, Laylatul Miraj, Laylatul Isra, and they pass it on. And they just pass it on. They don't even read it themselves, first of all, to even know that look what's mentioned is correct or not. And then after somebody says, oh, I just skimmed, I didn't really read. But you didn't read it. I didn't really read it. You didn't read it. So why did you pass it on if you didn't read it? So that's it. We just forward, continue forwarding it. So we just want to get that reward without even reading it ourselves, without even knowing whether it's authentic or not. And this is another ajib matter as well. We don't have time as well to go into that detail as well. Of how we made the month of Rajab and 27th of Rajab as well, Pacific with the night of Miraj. This is another jahalat. It's nothing but ignorance. There's nothing but ignorance. There are 12, 13 different opinions with regards to when the night of Miraj took place. From there, one weak point is that of the 27th of Rajab. And there are others as well. 12 to 13 different opinions when the night of Miraj took place. So why do we make Rajab? And why do we make the 27th of Rajab Pacific with the night of Miraj? That now we have to have bayans in the masjid on the topic of Miraj. And the reason why we do not know when the night of Miraj took place is because there is no ibadat related to the night of Miraj. 15th of Shaban, there is auspiciousness of it in moderation. Laylatul Qadr is there in the Quran. So because these are nights wherein we are told to do the ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ashura is ibadat as well related to it. So those dates are known. Laylatul Qadr, we do not know the precise, but we know when. We look for it because it is mentioned there. There is no ibadat related to the night of Mi'raj. And because there is no ibadat related to the night of Mi'raj, it hasn't been recorded. Neither did the Sahaba celebrate it or do anything for it to be recorded. That's why there is so much ikhtilaf when it transpired, because there were no Laylatul Mi'raj bayanat that used to take place, a program specifically related to Isra that took place anywhere at all. So there's no reason why we should be following that trend as well. Meaning Mi'raj took place, auspicious moment as well. Allama Ibn Taymiyyah Rahmatullah mentions for Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the night of Mi'raj held more fazilah than Laylatul Qadr, and for the Ummah of Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the night of Qadr has more virtue than the night of Laylatul Mi'raj. So for Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and the fact that Ummah was given the Salat in that night makes it an auspicious occasion, but there is no ibadah related to it. For that reason, there is no time, there is no specificness with regards to when it took place. So there is no need for us to make it like mention about Miraj whenever you want to throughout the year. It's not specific that it needs to be mentioned in Rajab. And then that's what happens. Then these hadiths go around. And then we do so many things which are fake with regards to what ibadah to do during the night of Miraj. And that way also goes out. There's no ibadah at all, and people will do all sorts in the night of Miraj. And those messages go, we receive that, we say, okay, look, others will make amal upon it, we'll get reward. Others will make amal upon it, they'll pass it on, they'll pass it on. What's going to happen is, we're just going to be part of the entire chain of falsehood. Hence, these things are very, very important, something that a lot of people are involved in, and it's very important that we abstain from this. So this also falls under falsehood and lying as well, where we do not verify something and we pass that on to others if it is false, or even just the fact that we didn't verify will fall under falsehood, under lying as well. Allah Ta'ala grant us all the understanding and grant us all the ability to control the forwarding, and let us abstain from this. Save ourselves from greater destruction, although it means that we may feel that we are not getting the reward that we hope for, but that is better then what? Then putting ourselves in destruction by following something which is false, which is made up, which isn't from the hadith of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Next week, inshallah, will be purpose.